Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we are almost done with Big Ten Media Days. Not quite. We still get to talk to Ryan Day a little bit later on this afternoon, but we have more Ohio State interviews in person than we've done in 16 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Not bad, yeah. 3 hours, an hour each with Thayer Munford, Zach Harrison, and Jeremy Ruckert. Ryan Day spoke up at the podium today for about 15 minutes, then had a little breakout for 5 minutes, and then we will get him here shortly for an hour. So we'll have to drop out of here in less than 30 minutes, because he starts talking at 3:30. So if you got some questions, go ahead and throw them out there. But I thought we would just start by, I guess, some of the news that we learned from Ryan Day. One, Marcus Hooker is back with the team and practicing, so that adds even more depth to the secondary. So that's an interesting add, because we really haven't talked about him in the spring. Me personally, I've almost moved on from him being a part of the program. So to see him back, is he in the mix with Josh Proctor at deep safety and Jansen Dunn and Bryson Shaw? That's kind of a thin group. He adds some depth there, or is he more of the slot guy? Tom, I don't know.
I don't know, and I don't think I would necessarily project him to start in either of those spots, but in either of them, he probably at least provides some depth. Mm-hmm. He was not outstanding during the times that he played last year. That was, he was far from the only issue in the defensive backfield last year, but he was one of the issues at times. So I don't know that they're necessarily relying on him for anything specific. I don't know that this is I don't think this is something that anyone is going to, call a, win at all costs move to let him back on the team. He may just be a role player at some point this year, but yeah, I'm with you. I had kind of formulated where I thought things were on the defensive backfield and assumed maybe he was not going to be back because he just kind of hadn't heard anything for a while, but he's back, and at the very least, that does provide some more depth for them this fall.
Yeah, and other news, Kourt Williams, Cam Brown should be good for fall camp. We'll get more out of him about that. I'm planning on doing stories on both of those guys. I think everybody is coming from this, because we haven't heard, all you heard in the spring was they should be good to go. And now that we are, and we'll actually find out, hey, when exactly is camp kicking off? Mm-hmm. And so we'll get some updates on the injuries there. So that's all looking good. Anything else from day to day?
Palaie Gaoteote, the linebacker transfer from USC, is in Columbus. He's with the program. Right now, he's paying his own way. He is not on scholarship at Ohio State yet, and cannot play this fall yet. They're waiting on, this is one of these incredibly stupid NCAA loophole things where he entered the transfer portal before the NCAA approved the one-time transfer without having to sit out. So therefore, even though everyone else in the country can transfer without having to sit out now, he transferred during that time, but because his name entered the portal before that time, he is technically still subject to having to sit a year out, or have to petition. So he's petitioning, they're going through the paperwork process. Tony, I am the eternal optimist, and I would love to tell you that I have a tremendous faith that not even the NCAA could do something this stupid, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We will have to wait and see, and everybody, cross your fingers, and we'll see what they do. Tom, I have faith that they will make the correct decision, because just imagine the pushback or the bad scene that would come from the incorrect decision. However, it doesn't seem to have bothered them in the past.
They did just spend, I believe I saw $68 million in legal fees to a big chunk of that in exchange for losing 9-0 in the Supreme Court in the Alston case. So the legal budget may be a little thin, and they may not be looking to pick a fight. So that more so than I'm sure they'll do the right thing, maybe that will be what motivates them to do the right thing.
Like all EA now TOTS say is, I will sue you. Mm-hmm. Ohio State will say, we have lawyers. Mm-hmm. We got, and then the NCAA will have to back down because their current lawyers are still waiting to get paid all of that money. And it's like, well, okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah. You talked to Thayer Munford. I talked to Jeremy Ruckert. Mark was with Zach Harrison. Unfortunately, Zach Harrison didn't say anything outrageous. I asked Mark, I was like, is there something we should mention on the show? Did he call out Michigan? Michigan was a popular topic today among the players based on what was said yesterday by Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan players. And not that they said anything outrageous. The players are just talking about how it's a big game. It's important. They're focused on it, and the signs in the facility. And Ruckert, all he had to say was that it's a rivalry. It's it hasn't lost any meaning. It's something they work on every day. Sometimes with rivalries, people say stuff, and I wanted to be like, Jeremy,
you're a person.
Would you like to be one of those persons? But I didn't. I decided, to just let him be. But nothing noteworthy on the Michigan front on my end.
Yeah, Thayer Munford was asked when you're sitting there. We were just each of us were just sitting there streaming the whole interviews live on our YouTube channel. So we were there for the whole time. What most people do, or people who don't have 3 different people here, organizations that have 3 different people there, they have their reporters kind of bounce from person to person. So someone will come over and not realize that this question has already been asked 3 times. So Thayer Munford got asked about the Michigan thing probably 5 to 6 times during the course of the hour. And very consistently his answer was, that's great. We're that's great that they're doing that. It didn't seem at all like something, he didn't give anything inflammatory as that you're not, they are coached very well to not give anything inflammatory. They didn't give anything inflammatory, but it was just kind of like, yeah, that's how you should treat this. This is the greatest rivalry in sports. And so, yes, of course you should put emphasis on it. He was asked, were you surprised they didn't seem to be doing it putting that kind of emphasis on it in the past? And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm sure they're putting emphasis on it. I'm sure this is not anything new. So, they didn't take the bait, sadly, which is always, I'm always extremely here for someone taking the bait and giving us a full of stories to write, but didn't happen today.
Well, and that's the problem with bringing upperclassmen to stuff like this. You need freshmen or high school recruits.
Oh man, high school recruits would definitely make this a more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But
so like I said, if you guys have questions, go ahead and hit us up. We'll try to get to some of them. Talking to Ruckert today, he said that he would be okay with 1 catch or 60 catches as long as they win and get back to where they were and then go further than that. So he learned how to be. You're going to have to be unselfish coming to Ohio State as a tight end, but what he learned from Luke Farrell, as he said he wouldn't be here without Luke Farrell to show him the way of silence and understanding that you have a greater role than just catching passes. So he has such reverence for Luke Farrell. It's interesting to watch him and just to hear how he talks about him. Mentioned that Cade Stover is his guy. I asked him, have you been to Cade's farm yet? He's like, no, but I'm gonna. I need to get to the farm. He's a big fan of Stover meats. And I asked him, is that your first NIL deal? And he's like, no. But, also he said he wanted to get to the farm. And I'm like, but you're a city boy? And he's like, well, no, I'm from Long Island. And they have farms there. But Tom.
They do have farms on Long Island. They're not necessarily where on Long Island Jeremy Ruckert's from. Jeremy Ruckert's south side of Long Island, a little further on the west side, closer to New York City. He's not really out there with the Hampton tomatoes and all of that. So.
But he did say that he was asked about the NIL stuff, and he's said he hasn't really had time to think about that right now. There's a week or 2 before camp starts. That's his focus right now, and he also said that he used the word, this is his terminal season 3 times.
That sounds pretty concerning, actually.
Well, and I wanted to get more into that, because that feels like it's coming from the coaching staff and to the seniors, to the guys who are going to be like, this is terminal, but it's very a little too heavy. But also, this being his last year at the NFL coming up, he said he's playing for a larger paycheck, and he's not concerned about if something comes along, he'll have some people look at it, but that's not his focus at all right now.
And that's I think what you want your players to, the approach you want your players to have. Because there's sort of that, we've talked about this in the past, the sort of short-term thinking of, I can get an extra $25,000 right now, as opposed to the long-term thinking, which is the difference between a first-round draft pick and a second-round draft pick is like $5, $8, $10 million. You want players thinking longer-term, because if you're thinking longer-term, then you're handling your business in the short-term, and you're not getting distracted in the short-term. So that's I think, ideal, and if you want to get a little money, that's great, but you don't necessarily need it.
No. Anything from Thayer on that front?
Thayer was very interesting on NIL. it was one of the first questions that he was asked about, and he said he's got a couple things. One of them was a car dealership, and as he's answering this, I'm thinking how different a world we live in. Because one of the SIDs, Mike Bassford, was walking up right afterwards to just like leave a voice recorder there, and normally they'll kind of keep an ear on things and how things are going. And Thayer Munford's talking about how he's getting a car from this car dealership, and how in previous years that would have been like record scratch, end of the event, and in this case it was just like, yeah, that's a thing you can do now.
I'm just thinking back to the Terrell Pryor years when there were all of the stories about loaner cars. The BMV had to get involved and determine how many of these cars were legitimately used, owned, borrowed, and of course it came back that everything was legitimate enough. And now you've got players saying, yeah, but also not bad to have a girlfriend whose family owns a car dealership.
Yeah, I think that's probably not a bad thing at all in terms of facilitating that setup. He's just such an impressive kid there, Munford. I assume most people listening to this probably know the backstory there, but he is from one of the areas of Cincinnati where the way he put it is just like you don't get out. Like people don't get out unless you're an athlete, unless you're you got something going for you to get you out of there. He's from one of the areas of Cincinnati where it's real hard to get out of there. And he just, his story's been told with, moving up to Massillon and Coach Nate Moore and all that kind of stuff and sort of getting adopted. And but he's such an impressive kid because he has overcome. He talked about having learning disabilities and concerns about his test scores coming out of high school, and was that that was a concern. And now here he is, a 4-year starter, very likely going to be a captain this year. NFL player. He said one of the reasons he didn't leave was he had promised his mom when he left Ohio State he would have his degree, and he didn't have his degree yet. So he wants to finish that degree. But I mean, you want to talk about someone who's really overcome some stuff. That is a person who's really overcome some stuff, and when you talk to him now, you'd have no idea.
Right.
He is the you talk to him and you talk to Zach Harrison, and it's the same. Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of person coming from two very different places, two very different backgrounds. That is real impressive to me.
Well, and that was something that Jeremy Ruckert talked about as well. Like no other place in the world than sports brings so many different people and backgrounds together. Because we were joking about him, Cade Stover and Jeremy Ruckert being kind of opposites, but it's not just them. It's many different types of people and backgrounds that all come together. And so it was interesting to see Ruckert talk about that. I also asked him if there was any better situation for a young quarterback to come in than the one that C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord are coming into now with two outstanding tackles and running backs and receivers and tight ends. And he said that no, there's probably no better circumstance to come into. So I'm interested to ask Ryan Day about that to see where he can critique his offense and be like, well, it'd be nice to have a returning starting center, basically.
Yeah, and Munford talked about that as well, where he said, explosive wide receivers, explosive running backs, really good tight ends. Like, you're pretty well set up there. And that people were asking him, like, what are you helping with quarterbacks with? He just said basically, like, just telling them, like, just calm down. Like, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. You calm down and do your job. Everyone else around you is fine. So which he wasn't asked the exact same question, but it was kind of the exact same answer. Like, you are as set up as you can possibly be. You don't need to worry about anyone else. Everyone else has their job covered. You just do yours.
Yeah, and that was something else. Just these guys being young players, Jeremy Ruckert said the entire team has kind of rallied around them and done what they can to help them out because, Ruckert said when he was young, he relied on Luke Farrell. And I was like, well, but Luke Farrell was your position. Mm-hmm. So can this, maybe galvanize the entire offense, bring them all together by feeling responsible for bringing these quarterbacks together? And he said, that's a possibility just because, everybody's working so hard they're working hard on their own, but also like they have this responsibility to help the quarterbacks along as well. It's interesting.
Yeah, and you know that takes something off the quarterback's plate in some ways, where you know you're going to have your leadership coming from other places. You're going to have the quarterbacks kind of get lifted up, because I think Justin Fields was kind of not dragging people along at times the last couple of years, but Justin Fields had to do a lot by himself. The quarterbacks are not, you know, the quarterbacks are kind of going to be the ones getting the little boost now, which as a first-time starter, I mean, it seems now like Justin Fields was, you know, this crafty veteran this whole time. Was like, no, Justin Fields when he came in was the guy who had, you know, thrown 11 passes at Georgia or whatever it was, and you know, come into learning a new offense for the first time, and then, you know, his second year didn't have a full offseason. I mean, like, you have all this stuff. You look back at Justin Fields now, and it's like, yes, crafty veteran Justin Fields. Well, he wasn't always crafty veteran Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud is coming in to this fall, and so is Jack Miller, and so is Kyle McCord, with kind of this, you know, a much shorter, you know, lead-up time than Justin Fields even had. So it's going to be a challenge, but they definitely have the support network in place there for those guys.
And there's been no, you know what, I'm really liking C.J. Stroud more than Kyle. You know, nobody is talking like that at all. And
yeah,
not they don't even need to be coached to. They just know better. And it would behoove nobody for them to take a stance one way or the other. And so it also tells you like how insulated they are, how protective I think maybe they are of everybody as well. So don't expect a lot of information about the quarterbacks. When we talk to Ryan Day here in a little bit, I bet the quarterbacks come up.
I suspect we will probably hear from the quarterbacks. I also suspect we will not have Ryan Day announce a starting quarterback.
Oh, you think?
That's my suspicion, is that we will not have Ryan Day announce a starting quarterback. I mean, you said it, not me. But
I meant you. I was talking about
okay.
You.
Yeah. Yes. One thing that I thought was really interesting was, you know, Thayer Munford was asked, you know, are you going to have to be, I think the broad assumption is Thayer Munford will be a captain this year. Those haven't been announced yet, but pretty sure he's going to be a captain. You know, he was asked, are you going to be the guy who's standing up in front of the locker room and screaming and giving the big rah-rah speech before the game? And he said, no, man, that's Zach. And it was like, Zach who? Like, what? Zach Harrison? Zach Harrison is going to be that guy? Zach Harrison, who was like the quietest person throughout his recruitment, didn't want any attention, Zach Harrison is the vocal leader on this year's team. And it's like, you know, Zach Harrison is here at Big Ten Media Day. Zach Harrison is one of 3 guys who were singled out and picked. He's the only guy on the defense. He's representing the whole Ohio State defense. He's a junior, only a third-year player. They've got more experienced guys. They've got guys who with bigger career numbers. It's Zach Harrison who's here representing Ohio State, and you know, Thayer Munford made it sound like this was not like, well, we're forcing Zach to do this. It was like, no, this is who Zach is now. Zach has changed a little bit as a person, grown a little bit as a person. Like that was maybe the most surprising thing I heard all day.
And it's funny, my first, and I mentioned this on the show previously, my first experience with Zach Harrison, ever talking to him, was after an OSU camp. Before he was committed to anybody, he was still Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. And he didn't really want to talk, but we, like a gaggle of 7 of us, like walked with him and his mom. And, you know, we walked and we asked questions and he answered questions and short, you know, but it was like, he's not one of these people like Jonathan Cooper. He'll sit and even as the same camp, or not the same camp, but a few years earlier at that same camp, you know, he's talking to all of us. His parents are in the background like, can you please come? Can we go home now? You know, that sort of thing. And it's interesting to see now him come, I guess, full circle in just 3 years.
And for those who are hopped on recently, we have a hard out for Ryan Day at 3:30 Eastern. We're probably going to hop off in about 10 to 15 minutes to get ready for that. So we're going to zip through some questions real quick on that. And we'll get through what we can get through, and you know, I don't know, maybe we'll do a little more later on in the evening. Jim wants to know why they want to move the Big Ten championship game. Money is the answer. They want to move it because they want to get bigger bids from other cities to so that Indianapolis does not just assume that.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Also, poor leadership.
Hey, what a smooth transition to Jim's next question. What do you think about Gene Smith's comment about Kevin Warren? If you missed that, Clay Hall from ABC6, our good buddy Clay Hall, tweeted that out this morning. Gene Smith basically said he was on the committee that was putting together the list of proposed candidates for the new Big Ten commissionership, and the list that they turned in did not have a Kevin Warren's name on it, and yet he's the commissioner. We'll do a little criminology for you here. Okay. That is like, oh, that's really incredible. Here's what's actually incredible. The fact that Gene Smith said that with his out loud voice. Here's what that means. If he said that with his out loud voice, that is as close as you will ever come to a public vote of no confidence from Ohio State. Gene Smith probably did not do that without at least tacit approval from the person who is above him on the org chart, and there's not that many people above him on the org chart at Ohio State. That was mind-blowing to me. And if it was not from a reporter who is well known, well respected, I would have thought they must have gotten that wrong. That was mind-blowing to me that came out today.
Because all Gene had to say is, I don't remember it about it. Just yada yada, or just shoo it away. But to answer that and basically say, like, I'm putting this out there because I want people to know it. Because that's the only reason you give an answer is because you want people to know it. And if you want that known, like, hey man, I didn't do this. This ain't my fault.
This entire 2 days is people not answering questions they don't want to answer. That's literally the whole point of this event. Don't say anything newsworthy, and don't say anything that you don't want to. Gene Smith did the opposite, which tells you Gene Smith does want to do it, does want you to know that, and boy, isn't that meaningful. Z-Money 87, is Kansas joining the Big Ten? I saw a report from someone out of Kansas today that Kansas is going to talk to the Big Ten. There is a lot of real estate between Kansas having one conversation with the Big Ten and Kansas joining the Big Ten. The Big Ten does not need to be in any rush to add Kansas. It's not like the Pac-12 or ACC is going to be trying to steal Kansas away. So you just had a report on your phone.
From the Athletics saying that Texas and Oklahoma is basically done. Multiple sources will inform. Texas and Oklahoma will inform the Big 12 of their exits on Monday, with plans to bolt for the SEC from the Athletics.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays. Vinay says, do you see a move to the ACC in our future, given Kevin Warren's ineptitude? Short answer, no.
No, they would get rid of Kevin Warren before they got rid of Ohio State.
Right, and they will, I think if there is a concern that Kevin Warren is not the person to lead them through this, and that is a broadly held position within the league, then that is an easily solvable problem. Yep. Michael says, if C.J. Stroud doesn't start this year, Ryan Day should be fired. I suspect that will not be an issue.
Well, it's a little too early to say that.
Yeah.
But
Texas are busted. Should Ohio State be concerned about the Big Ten's ability to navigate the future of college football after this OU Texas move to the SEC? Yes. Should they bail and look for greener pastures? They should be concerned. But yes, I think that the ability to handle the current situation is a more fixable thing that is not going to override 100 years of tradition and the Big Ten academic consortium and yada yada yada.
The footprint is still the footprint. The history is still the history, and the cities are still the cities. So the Big Ten's not going anywhere.
Michael says it would be nice to see the Big Ten championship move, but keep Indianapolis in the rotation. Your thoughts?
I like it here. I don't need to go anywhere else. I don't want to go to New Jersey for a Big Ten championship game. I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. I don't want to go to Chicago. I like it here. It's easy.
Yeah, and Texas or Busted says keep the Big Ten championship game in a dome. Should be either in Indy or Detroit. Like, if they want to move it to Detroit every once in a while, fine. If they want to move it to Minneapolis once, that's fine.
Because there's no concern that it would become a home game for Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan, Minnesota, these are all neutral sites.
Right.
Rutgers. I mean, I think I told this. I have told this story on one of the podcasts we did here. I think it was the Morning Scoop for Friday morning. But literally the coldest sporting event I have ever attended in person was the 2002 Army-Navy game in the Giant Stadium, which was like a December 7th kind of game. And so that would be the same weekend. And it is, you're out in the Meadowlands, there's nothing around. There ain't nothing around. It is flat. It is, and the way Giant Stadium is built, I have not been in the new one, MetLife, but I mean the old, and it looks very similar to the old Giant Stadium. The wind gets in there, and man, oh man, is it cold. And you think about how style points, and you're going head to head, and yes, you won, but did you win pretty enough? You're going to be compared to teams playing in a dome in Atlanta, and teams playing in Charlotte, and teams playing in in a dome in, where does the Big 12 do it? Houston or Jerry World, wherever it is, it's indoors, and the Pac-12 playing in Las Vegas. I mean, like, you don't want to be the only morons playing outside while it's snowing sideways in a day when you have to win with style points. Like, that is the dumbest idea ever. So, yeah, I mean, I would prefer just stay in Indianapolis because this is just about a perfect venue, just about a perfect, downtown.
But if they,
it's easy in and out. It's very convenient for Ohio State. It's pretty centrally located for the whole league. Like, it's not a bad drive for Wisconsin fans or Iowa fans or Northwestern fans or Penn State when they're here. I mean, it's just all the teams that have been here. It's pretty conveniently located. Michigan State, it's close to that. I mean, like, all the teams that have played here, it's very conveniently located. Nothing's close to Nebraska, so.
Well, and all the teams are more than happy to make the trip here.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, for the fans, in terms of
fans too.
You're going to be asking fans to, if the Big Ten championship game is in Minneapolis, you're going to be asking Ohio State fans to get on a plane and go there, and then get on a plane and go to the semifinal, and then get on a plane and go to the final. And if they lose in the semifinal, then you're asking them to have those 3 trips potentially, plus also maybe pay for a home ticket or go to a road game. I know that no one gives a crap about the fans. No one in charge of the sport gives a crap about the fans, and it's all about making money. But it would be super nice if they didn't have to do that.
Well, and this is good for the Big Ten here, playing the game here.
Yeah. And this is a city that really, really, like, this turns into a major like Big Ten city.
Not last December.
Not last December, but yeah. Let's see. We're gonna zip through these as fast as we can. Michael says, what is your take, and who would you want to see move from the Big 12 to the Big 10? Iowa State, Oklahoma State, or Kansas? Can I have none of the above?
None of those. I mean, it's all like settling. It's 2 a.m., type of stuff.
Well, and I have not looked up AAU membership. I think Kansas is. Iowa State is, like, they already have a team in Iowa. They don't need Iowa State.
Iowa's going to say no.
Yeah.
Ohio State's going to say no to Cincinnati. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah, Oklahoma State I don't think is an AAU member. And it's like there was a report that our Nevada Buck had that Oklahoma and Texas had talked to the Big Ten. Oklahoma's AAU status was a deal breaker, and then so you're going to get Oklahoma's broken down unemployed brother from Stillwater. Like, that doesn't sound like something that's probably going to happen. Let's see. Texas or Busted says, I think the only response to the new SEC is some Tier 1, Tier 2 form of league with ACC, Big 10, Pac-12, sort of European promotion relegation style of league. That would be really interesting. I have seen the idea of some kind of Big 10, Pac-12 schedule. I mean, they had that scheduling arrangement at one point. Is there going to be some kind of, is USC interested in joining the Big 10?
Well, I asked Gene Smith, hey, what about the Big 10 moving all the way out to California? And he was like, the trips would be too long. Can you just imagine those trips? He's like, media, do you guys want to do that? Fly out, do all of these different things?
Do you want to go out to Los Angeles in November? No, you'd rather go to Minneapolis.
No, he said, do you want to go out to Washington? So I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Seattle. Washington State, that's a little dicey, but. All right, we got to hop off here because we got to go talk to Ryan Day. So this is a little abbreviated show for you guys, but we'll be back. I'll have a Saturday morning scoop just because we're just going to do shows every day at this point because there's lots of stuff to talk about. So we'll have a Saturday morning scoop. We may do another Buckeye Weekly at some point if we have time before we leave. But thank you guys all for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will talk to you, I don't know when, but whatever. We'll see you.
At some point.